So one side we have the content of something, and on the other side we have the context of something. So it's very important to understand the difference between the two and the importance of both of them, both content and context. For example, in our attempt to grasp the content of whatever, in this case of bhakti, content or context in this case may be compared to a glass, if you will, and content with the content of the glass, with water. So both of them are essentially important. Generally we need the context, if you will, something which is extending to us, presenting the context in a particular way so we may take advantage of that. We are in the Western side of the world, most of us, so that's a very delicate situation in many senses, and one of them in this connection is that Western DNA, if you will, tends to take things in a very literal way. Sometimes we find some difficulty in putting things into context and thus achieving the greater picture of whatever we are approaching. And this is this famous quote that says that a text out of context becomes a pretext. No? So if we are not very much aware of the idea of the importance of context, whatever we may be approaching, wherever we may be quoting, wherever we may be trying to embrace, we may be doing that in a very distorted way, in a very partial way, not in the real, full, proper way. So that can become a very delicate issue, a very self-cheating process where, well, big consequences may be there. Not only, well, the classical example is when we try to preach, the word preaching or the word of disseminating the message. If we are not able to present the revealed message, we belong to a very ancient tradition whose message is coming from thousands and thousands of years and even more, but was presented historically in a particular context when Vedas were spoken and so on. So if we are not fully sensitive to the moment that this message was delivered, we may, engage in a disaster in the name of presenting revelation. This is sometimes called anachronistic proselytism, if you will, like trying to deliver a message, but in an anachronistic way, like out of chronos, out of time, not being fully aware of which was the psychology and the culture of the society where the message was delivered at that particular time. Because time advances. So sometimes time is advancing, but we are not advancing. So we should advance along with time. We should be properly aware of all the implications of the passing of time when we are presenting, in this case, the revealed message. As the other day, Guru Maharaj also was speaking about something called historical presentism, which means that we try to analyze the past, but from our present point of view. Not taking the task of entering into the past, of traveling, if you will, to that particular moment in time and becoming aware of all the details. No, we just analyze whatever happened before me, but from the nowadays perspective, which is, again, will create chaos instead of clarity, basically. And this also cannot be only applied to the scripture. We can engage in historical presentism in our relation with others. Some people did something 10 years ago, and I'm in the present moment are judging that person for what she did 1 decade before, and I'm just considering that person in that particular cage, and I'm not taking the time to analyze. Maybe time passed and that person went through some particular process and there's some hope for the person, the same hope I also need in my life, and so on. So we should become actually progressive and dynamic in this sense. We should become, as Erickson put, like a generative person. Generative in the sense of not only generating something, but being sensitive to the generations, in the sense of not being stuck in what I'm doing now and everything is according to what I perceive now, but what I'm seeing is considering previous generations, how did they do that, and future generations, how what I'm doing the present will affect other people coming after me. So becoming such a personality, it's like, well, a big exercise to put our ego out of the center and becoming sensitive to what others have to feel like this. So content or context basically implies not only an understanding of the past, in this case from its own perspective, but also projecting properly the future, including the future in a generative spirit, and considering the potential of every person, of every situation, when we are trying to judge, if you will, reality. Being generous, in other words. See you next fortnight.